Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one preview for the Masters. We're finally to that time of year, and because we've got ourselves a big time event, back to bringing you guys a little bit of a research preview of what to expect from the prop side, both for Underdog Fantasy over there on Prize Picks, plenty of other sites that are now offering single round props. So in this video, I'm going to make sure you're armed with all the knowledge that you need to go out there, make some educated bets, and then towards the end, also going to go over two of my top props, both over there on Underdog and on Prize Picks, and a few ideas on how you can attack each site when it comes to your prop exposure. So let's go ahead and get this started with a look at the course, which of course is Augusta National Golf Club. Everyone here is most likely familiar, but a few things to focus on are probably some of the statistical profiles, right? How many greens are hit per round, how many fairways, score, so on and so forth. So scoring average last year was 1.95 over par, and over the years that has varied quite wildly. So the year when DJ won, the winning score was 20 under par. Last year, it was 10 under when Hideki won, I believe. It was right around like 14 under par. When Tiger won, it was close to 10 under par. You have years where, like when Danny Willett won, when it was only like 6-4. Actually, I think it was 5 under par when Danny Willett won. But either way, you have a range between 20 and then 5 under par going out there and taking this home. So a lot of it comes down to weather conditions. So that's something that we'll take a look at now. This is for Thursday at Augusta National. You can see that they're calling for much better conditions than some of the early forecasts in the week. You may have seen a few people talking about how it's going to rain all weekend. Going to start there on Friday. So for Thursday's action, you can see towards the latter half of the day, it does go from mostly cloudy to cloudy. So you can see that storm front does start to come in there Thursday evening, but it won't actually hit the area with precipitation, with lightning in the air until right around 8 p.m. And all of the plays already going to be wrapped up by then. So in terms of Thursday weather, let's take a look at the winds. You can see they're not calling for much. Let's get over here to Thursday. Right between 6 to right around 7 miles an hour all day. You go over here to Wind Finder, you can see the same kind of forecast. Now the wind gusts early, you can see they're actually a little bit closer to like 12 miles an hour. They're also calling for slight little drizzles there in the early hours. If anything, a slight little drizzle is going to help these players, right? It's going to soften up the greens, soften up the fairways a little bit. But the important factor here, at least for the prop angle, is going to be the winds, which look relatively calm at this point. Few things to keep in mind. The driving accuracy in 2022 was 71.5%, and historically, it's right around 69% for this event, which is the equivalent of somewhere between 9.5 to 10 fairways per round. So when we take a look at this tab over here, guys, you can see 71.5% is equivalent to right around 10 fairways per round. The green and regulation percentage is 60.6%, which is the equivalent of right around 10.9 green and regulations per round. The scoring average, already went over that, right close to 2 over par. But these birdie and bogey averages are really what I want to focus on, right? A lot of the props that people are betting, pretty much regardless of site, are usually on birdies or better, where it was just 3.31 last year per round. And this is only for the guys that made the cut. So you may say there's probably some outliers, right, dragging that down. I took them out, right? I took all the old guys, right? The 56-year-olds that are still playing this event as past champions, threw them out of there, the amateurs, so on and so forth. These metrics, at least for birdies better and bogeys are worse, are only reflective of that top 50, 55 that ended up making the weekend last year. Bogeys are worse. There was 3.86 per round. That is especially important when we take a look at Underdog, but a few other metrics to look at. So in 2021, actually played even more difficult than what you saw for last year. There was only 2.81 birdies per round, and again, that's only the players that made the cut. And then in terms of bogeys per round, it was 4.2 per round. So you could see it was harder to come by birdies there in 2021 when Hideki ended up winning, and bogeys were also a little bit more prevalent. In 2020, that was the year when DJ went out there and won at 20 under par. I like to show this as more of like an upper bound. That year it played a lot easier, but it also was played in November. It wasn't played anywhere sort to its usual time on the schedule, which meant there was much more receptive greens. The course was a lot less severe than it typically is. Again, they're trying to gear this course up every single year to be played, right? This first week in April, it's not used to being played late in the year when it's firm and fast, when it plays a lot shorter than its true distance. That was reflected in the stats, right? Nearly 4 birdies per round in a much significantly lower bogey per round average. Now, the reason why I include that is to show you how easy, quote unquote, easy this course can get, because you can see even with the optimal conditions, they're still not making 4 birdies per round, right? They're still making 3 bogeys per round. What I'm expecting this time around is close to what we had in 2022. So these averages up top, I think, are relatively accurate. In 2021, if the conditions get a little bit windy, like they likely will on Friday and Saturday, it also may rain during the round. Maybe we see averages closer to this, where the scoring average was like 2.5, sometimes even 3 strokes over par. So that's what I want to point out from the stat perspective. I know it's a lot, but hey, it's important when we get into these props. So when we look at Underdog, the 2 main props I like, and they're not the only 2 I've played. Of course, guys, like the stats that I have up here, this is a post for my Patreon page. All the props I'm taking, the write-ups behind them, I also post on there. But 2 of my favorite props, regardless of site for tomorrow, are on Underdog, where I like Colin Morikawa and Xander Schauffele under 4.5 birdies. Just to remind you, the average last year was just 3.31 birdies per round, and it was down to lower than 3 right there in 2021. So although we have low winds, pretty much ideal conditions here on Thursday, and that's certainly why they're over here in Underdog and have them at 4.5 birdies, you'd have to be taking their unders. I mean, they're at the same birdie mark as a Rory McIlroy, a Scotty Scheffler's at 4.5, a John Rahm. Even Justin Thomas. Yeah, he's there at 4.5 birdies as well. The reason why I'm not fading them is they have that ceiling performance in them, at a 15-20% clip. They're the world's best players, world's 1 through 3. JT's the most prolific birdie maker on the PGA Tour. He might not be the best player, right? He adds in a lot of bogeys, but when it comes to birdie production, he was number 1 on tour last year and the year before that. Morikawa and Xander aren't on that same level. So for me, if I'm going to try and take this numbers fade, right, just knowing that the average is so much lower than the projections here, it's going to be on a Morikawa and Xander that are maybe just that tier below when it comes to talent level. So I love these props. They should probably be at 4, like a Cam Smith at 4, like a Willie Z. Jordan Spieth loves this course. Same thing with Patrick Cantlay. Like, that makes sense, right? Like, I think that's an appropriate projection. They're that same level of golfer. So it's not like it's not 1.5 birdies off or something like that. I'm not saying that these guys should be out there at 3 birdies, right? But 3.5, 4 birdies, I think, is a little bit more of an appropriate projection than when they're currently at. Another bonus here is that on Underdog, right, there's no lower payouts, right, because you're taking 2 fades together. They're going to give you the full 3x payout, which is another added incentive to play it over there on that site. In terms of prize picks, I still like Morikawa over 71 strokes, so I actually debated giving that prop over here in Underdog, but I do like this 4.5 birdies one a little bit better. But over here on prize picks, they're at 4 birdies, right? So I mentioned that I thought their projection might be a little bit off. You can see that Prize Picks certainly agrees. They have Morikawa and Xander at 4 birdies, but you could take both of them. And this is also with Xander. So you have Morikawa here at 71. You have Xander. Let's just go ahead and add them on here for the sake of this video. At 71 strokes. Both of them are at 71.5 strokes on, Draftkings Sportsbook. Also, I think BetMGM has them at 71.5. But the important thing to note is that Draftkings has them juiced minus 145 and minus 155 respectively to the over, not to the under, right? Where you might expect them to post them at 71 strokes, no, to the over. So not only do you have a higher projection on those books, you also have it juiced in that direction, which makes me like both of these fades. I'm already on their fades in terms of birdies or better. That was the first slip that I ended up actually putting in this week. These strokes plays are along that same kind of vein, and the stats from the sports books, right? If you're a plus EV better, back it up emphatically. So I like taking those 2. The Tiger Woods prop is at 11.5 on Barstool. I know over there BetMGM also has them at 11.5 greens. There's not a bunch of books, right, that are offering mini green and regulation props, but all of them that have them at 11.5, and most of them are juiced like minus 115, minus 120 towards the over. So it's a little bit of a homer play, but if there's anything Tiger can do in this state, it's hit greens. He plays extremely conservative around Augusta National, and a lot of that is just aiming towards the center of a green and looking to go there, 2-putt, get out with a par, which for greens of regulation is the perfect blueprint to go out there and hit 12, 13 plus greens regulation. And if Tiger is going to have a respectable round, it's going to be by having that boring round, taking advantage of those par fives. So I think that's a pretty good direction to go. If you want to take strokes, I'm okay with that too. You can go over here, take his under on strokes. That would be another appropriate way to go out there and attack the board. Let's take a look at a few other categories. They have a ton up. I mean, they just added these amen corner shots. They have it at 12.5. It's a par 4, a par 3, and a par 5. So the par, quote unquote par for those three holes would be 12, but 11 is extremely difficult. 12 plays slightly over par. That's the iconic par 3 there in amen corner. And then 13 was lengthened this year. So I would say in the past, it would play probably close to a 12 scoring average, but because of the lengthening of hole 13, I think it makes it slightly more difficult. So perhaps we'll keep an eye on some of the early players out there on Thursday, see if there's an edge to be had. But I think because of 13 being a little bit harder this year, that maybe there's not the edge that there would have been in years past. Hole 4 is an extremely long par 3, so this is it's tempting if they shorten the hole up, right? So it's another situation where you want to take a look at those first few groups out, and if it is playing a lot shorter than usual, maybe you attack it. They have holes 1 through 9, holes 10 through 18. They're pretty much spot in line with where their strokes props are. The back 9 is slightly more difficult than the front, so usually there's a half a stroke to a stroke difference between the two projections. So for example, Scotty Scheffler is 35.5, and his holes 1 through 9, same thing. But I guess Tiger Woods' a better example, right? 36.5 on the front, and then his back 9 is 37. So there's a little bit of a dispersion there. And I tend to agree with that. I do think that because that par 5 13th is going to play a little bit more difficult with the extra length, that it will play slightly more difficult than the front side. Let's see, holes played, they have a make the cut prop here. Interesting, I think that these guys are all pretty close to coin flips, but in general, a lot more people make the cut at this tournament than most. There's only 88 players, I believe top 50 plus ties make it to the weekend, and there's a lot of guys in the field that really don't have a chance to make the cut, right? Like those old 56-year-olds, so on and so forth. You're not going to have to worry about them all that much. Speaking of, we have them on the board, so wanted to go ahead and show you guys down here. There's like Fred Couples, Vijay Singh, Sandy Lyle, Ola Thobel, you have Weir, right, Bernhard Langer, all those sort of guys there. I'm not going to bet on these guys. I mean, it seems like a coin flip. I have a hard time reading their games, or it's not like we've seen these guys playing on tour. If you want to have fun with it, maybe you take a few unders here. Like, if you're going to take an under, I guess I'll just throw it out there. Like, Langher and Weir are like the two that stick out to me as they're still playing decently on the Champions Tour. Weir is getting ready to be the President's Cup coach next time out, so that's like 3 years from now. But I have to assume that he's probably taking his game a little bit seriously because of that. Just trying to stay on top of the sport. That's interesting, right? You can maybe take a look at some of those guys down low, but I do like both of those fades. If you want to mix in the Tiger under strokes, you could do so. I prefer the greens regulation, but this strokes prop, it's at 72.5 strokes on most sports books. And typically the under is slightly juiced, like minus 120, minus 130. So that's negligible juice, right? They're going to put that on pretty much every single prop, right, to make their money. So I think with a stroke edge there, if you want to go in that direction, I'm not against that. The reason why I add in a Tiger Woods prop is so that we don't get screwed on the payout, right? 5x for a power play, normal payouts there. But if I were to take this out, you'll see that we're only getting 2.5x. So if you're going to go with a 2-man power play, do it on underdog. So, we took the 2 birdie or better ones before, right? We're getting our full payout. Take a look at this. So they're also at 71 strokes, right? So if you want to do so, get the full 3x payout. That would be my recommendation. That's the issue with Prize Picks. They offer more props. They have a lot more selection than what they have on Underdog. But at the same time, we have to deal with the multiplier, which I honestly, I don't even know if they should have it on their product. I don't know of anyone that really likes the multiplier, as it pretty much changes and dictates your strategy for taking props. If you can't just go out there and take the sides that you think are correct, right, or advantageous. So it's a little bit annoying. I definitely have a little bit more exposure in Underdog at this point than what I have on Prize Picks, but it's not all too far off. I have a lot of fairway props in. I guess this is worth noting, but a lot of them have been bumped. Like I had Shane Lowry over 9.5 fairways. I had Hatton over 8.5 fairways, so it got bumped up a whole fairway there. I had Rose 9.5. If you guys remember from before, the average for fairways is 10 per round, right? So guys that are more accurate than your usual player, you know, kind of like a few we took. I even took Scotty over 9.5. He was going to be featured in this video until they ended up taking him off. Like, I would still probably take them, right? If the average is going to be 10, and Scotty Scheffler, believe it or not, is like top 30 on the PGA Tour when it comes to accuracy. Actually, sorry, I think it's like top 50, but either way, it was a surprising metric. Guys like Justin Rose are like top 35 on tour right now. Tom Kim is an elite accuracy driver, and they're 55-yard wide fairways. Let's see, 54.4 yard wide fairways. I think a ton of overs for these fairways are going to hit. It's not windy, and I mean, for all accounts, doesn't look super firm and fast out there at this point because of some of the rain that they've had. So I would say almost regardless of player here, I mean, a lot of them have already been bumped. I would still take them. Like the guys I took, like Scotty, like 10, I would still take the over. So if you guys are looking for all the ones I took before, or my takes on maybe the rest of the board there, go ahead, join the Patreon page, and I'll get you guys hooked up there. There's a whole Discord page I include with that too, so that's where you can hit me up with all of those questions. In terms of underdog, there's actually a few guys you could take for unders for strokes. Again, I have to keep something behind the paywall there, so I'm not going to give away everything. But just to give you guys an example, I'll give you guys one of them in addition to those two other stroke props with Xander. Let's see, let's just type it in. I can't... Is there a spot to type it in? Yeah, there is. I was going to say. It's Cam Young, and they don't even have it up here, so you can't bet it right now. But if it comes back up on the board, maybe by the time you're watching this, it'll be back up. It's under strokes. He was at 72.5. He's at 71.5 on most books, and then juice towards the under. So that's at least something that I would keep an eye on. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for this week's prop breakdown. Before you hopping out of here, go ahead, comment down below your top prop on the board, the one that you have the most exposure to. Smash that like button, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the content in the future. I've been trying to do these round one previews. Haven't been able to do them every single week, but of course, all of my content, all of my write-ups are always posted on the Patreon page. For rounds 2 through 4, I do go live covering both showdown and the prop side for rounds 2 through 4. So it's not just rounds 1 that I'm covering. If you guys want that analysis, make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of those live streams here over the weekend. And I can tell you for the Masters tournament, we'll be going live for all 3 days. So looking forward to that. Like I said, best of luck with those props, any DFS lineups that you're going with on that side as well. And let's get this cash, fellas.